So welcome everyone to the course on the Buddhist path of awakening. And we are working on the text, Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior, by Chogyam Trungpa. These are the Shambhala teachings. We had started into the third volume of the Profound Treasury of the Ocean of Dharma, which is on the Vajrayana. And the third volume, the first chapter, is entitled The Great Eastern Sun, which is all about Shambhala. So I revisited the Shambhala teachings, Michael and I, and considered this, and considered them entirely appropriate. In fact, extremely Vajrayana, and an excellent way into the Vajrayana teachings. Tonight we are on chapters 5 and 6. And so we'll just start. This is the chapter 5, is entitled Synchronizing Body and Mind. And Trungpa Rinpoche has gotten to the point where he's really talking about the very essence of meditation. And he starts out by talking about basic goodness, which he's talked about in previous chapters, that the essence of reality is fundamentally wholesome, worth being here for, good. And it's called basic goodness. The term is in the English translation. I'm forgetting what the Tibetan is, but he says that it's always connected with gentleness. Not feeble, lukewarm milk and honey gentleness, but wholehearted, perky gentleness with good head and shoulders. Good head and shoulders means that your posture, physically, mentally, both, whatever, is very alert, erect, ready to be here, not looking for a way out. And so he says this gentleness comes from the experience of the absence of doubt or doubtlessness. Now, this doubtlessness doesn't mean that we are accepting the validity of some philosophy or conceptual system. It's not that kind of doubtlessness. It's the doubtlessness of being completely 100% present for however long before we go off into thought again. But we come back to this fundamental presence awareness that is with us all the time. It's like the sky, always there. Sometimes it's obscured by the clouds of thought, and then those clouds pass, and there's the sky again. That awareness, it's right here, right now, here in this space, and it has within it doubtlessness, because there is no hesitation. There is no wishing things were different. There is no feeling of fear. It's all right here in this easy, relaxed awareness of the present moment that is truly doubtless. Let's just take a good posture for a moment, if you would, wherever you are, or whatever constitutes a good posture for you. Some people have physical infirmities, and you find a position that's comfortable. This isn't meant to be physical torture in any way, but it's a posture that allows you to come present, and you bring your mind here into this space that we inhabit. Your mind is one with the space. What that means is you can see thoughts, but they just disappear into the space, like birds flying across and then they're gone, like clouds appearing and then disappearing. And meanwhile, we are right here, wherever here is for you, aware of whatever of the 6 objects of perception are presenting themselves. So there are sights, sounds, maybe smells, the occasional taste, bodily sensations, tactile, and of course, the thoughts which come and go. And we rest here in awareness, witnessing it, you might say. That's just one way of putting it, because it takes no effort. It's already here. This awareness is doubtless. It doesn't have doubt. In order for it to have doubt, you have to think, well, am I really doing it? And then you go off into thought and you think about I and this, and then those thoughts go. They evaporate. And here we are in this moment, aware of this room or the scenery that you're sitting in the midst of, with all of the six knowables showing up from time to time, smells and tastes, and here comes a taste. Very vivid. And that taste is doubtless. That taste of iced tea, it's truly doubtless. And that is the doubtlessness that he's talking about, that we are cultivating. And it's so easy. It's like you don't have to build it. It's already here. We just let go of doubt. So this is the way he starts out this chapter on synchronizing body and mind. He says, being without doubt has nothing to do with accepting the validity of a philosophy or a concept. No religion. You don't have to be a believer. In fact, being a believer is full of doubt. Because as soon as you say, yes, I believe, in the background there's, do I really? Yes, I do. Do I really? Yes, I do. So it implies doubt. But when you come into the presence of this, there's no room for doubt or doubtlessness. The whole issue dissolves. And there's terrific confidence in this awareness. He says the absence of doubt is trusting in the heart. And by the heart, he means the heart is the heart and the mind. It's the same. This mind contains huge heart, love, appreciation, sympathy, compassion, all live in this space of awareness. Trusting yourself, that you have experienced mind and body being synchronized together. And that's the theme of this chapter. Mind and body being synchronized together. When we are here in this present moment, mind and body are one. What you see and feel and hear and taste and smell, those physical sensations, they're just here in this awareness. There is no split. There's no need to say, I smell, I taste. That's a departure. That's going off into some thought. But when you're really smelling, when it's that vivid taste of the iced tea in your mouth, or whatever it might be, the feeling of your hand on the desk, your bottom on the seat, there's no doubt in that. And the mind and the body are synced, in sync like this, because there's no split between the mind which says I, that's just a temporary thing, and the body, which is right here, where you experience it. You let go of that. And then there is complete synchronization of knowing and known. They are one. The knowing and the known are one. The knowing of this white shirt, of that computer screen, of whatever you've got, and the knowingness of it and the thing that is known are in complete union. That's the synchronization of body and mind. He says this is the basic principle of how to be a human being and how to use your sense perceptions, your mind and body together. This is the true meaning of meditation. Meditation only starts as a kind of mental exercise, and it has some benefits when you do that. But we're beyond that now. We're coming into the Vajrayana, and in the Vajrayana, this is the true meaning of meditation. This simple awareness that is with us all the time. He says, It is about awareness, the awareness that is fundamental to our being, totally fundamental. There's nothing more fundamental than this. The awareness that is already there that we come back to from dreams. You're dreaming, you're walking down the street, what's going to have for lunch? That person shouldn't have said this to me. Oh, I really like this other situation. And then suddenly you stub your toe, a horn goes off, and you're back. You come back from dream and you're here, and your mind and body are synchronized again. When mind and body are properly synchronized, he says, then you have clear perception. It's not fogged over with thoughts of I and other, thoughts of good and bad, thoughts of I want this, I don't want that, thoughts of I'm afraid this is going to happen, I better remember to blah, blah, blah. You have a sense of being without doubt, being without the tremors and shaking and the short-sightedness of anxiety, which makes your behavior totally inaccurate. Inaccurate, why? Because you're lost in these dreams. You're not seeing what's really there. And then he uses, my note is, the outdated analogy of taking a picture with film. He loved to take pictures with film. He had this really, when he first arrived here, he had this cheap 35 millimeter camera that he'd bought in India. And he just took pictures all the time with it. And, he says you have to have the correct shutter speed and the correct ASA and the correct lens aperture. And all of that means, basically, it's like you're coming back here, now, so that you can register what is presenting itself, what is with you. When the body and mind are not synchronized, you're not in tune with your world. You'll miss the archery target. You won't hear your name when you're addressed. All kinds of things. You could have an automobile accident because you were so absorbed in thought. Make all kinds of mistakes. And he says it has two stages, synchronizing body and mind, or this meditation practice, if you will. At least in the beginning, it has these two stages. The first one is looking. You remember. You come back and you say, oh yeah, let's look and let's see what's here. There's this room with the window and the light outside and all of that. Or maybe you're sitting outside already and there are the trees and the sky. So you look. And then in the second instant, you see so clearly. And everything is so vivid, more and less depending on your clarity. He says, then you can see beautifully. In fact, you can feel the warmth of red and the coolness of blue and the richness of yellow and the penetrating quality of green all at once. And you appreciate the world around you. It is a fantastic new discovery of the world. This is the very essence of art. This is the very essence of the Vajrayana view. That it's why the Vajrayana is full of such color and imagery, outrageous imagery. It's because we begin to see this world so vividly that it's beginning to speak to us. And we're going to be studying this imagery and the way in which it's categorized and explained, the 5 Buddha families and more. And it's that the world is seen so vividly that it's telling us what it is in a way that we can't begin to understand or even see here when we're lost in anxious, complainatory dreams, the dreams of wishing things were otherwise for me. We give those up and we begin to step into a magical world. This is the world of luminosity, it's called in the Tantras. First, there's emptiness, which means empty of I and other, empty of dream. And then there's clear seeing, which is prajna. And then there is the beginning of skill in means, which means that because you are not living in this world of I and other and hope and fear, you can begin to act much more skillfully. And then comes luminosity. That's the English translation, the most common translation. Sometimes it's translated as vividness. Sometimes it's translated as limpid clearness. And what it means is that we begin to see this world so vividly, so beautifully, as it presents itself to us, with heart and compassion. He says, either you look and see beyond language, that's the first perception, or you see the world through the filter of your thoughts by talking to yourself. And when we see it through the filter of our thoughts, it's grayed out. It's grayed by all the thoughts that we're thinking of hope and fear and good and bad. Sometimes we're so lost in thought, someone could call our name just from a few feet away and you wouldn't even hear them because we're so lost in anxious thought. It's looking and seeing beyond language, beyond subconscious gossip. Your conversations between you and yourself and your lover and your teacher and your boss and your blah, 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 all in your mind. All of these things take us away from the perception of this world in the present moment. On the other hand, when you feel that you can afford to relax and perceive the world directly, then your vision can expand. You can see on the spot with wakefulness. Your eyes begin to open wider and wider, and you see the world as colorful and fresh and so precise. Every angle is fantastic. And we begin to enter really what is called in the Tantras the world of magic. It isn't magic in terms of pulling rabbits out of hats or necessarily even flying in the sky or reading minds. It's the magic of the beauty and the meaningfulness of this world as it presents itself to us. We're going to come to the whole teaching of Drala, which is the meaningfulness of the natural world as it arises in the present moment and communicates to us. And that's for a little bit in the future. So we open our eyes wider and wider, and we see that the world is colorful and fresh and so precise. In this way, synchronizing body and mind also involves developing fearlessness, because there's that absence of doubt. There's no room for it. It's like we're right here, ready. It's sort of the samurai mentality. You know, the samurai was meant to be fearless. I recently watched a film. It's pretty good. 47 Ronin, a depiction of samurai culture. It has a few things sort of off, but basically it shows the fearlessness of the samurai living in the present moment. This is another ethic. There's no room for fear. Fear just totally slows you down. It's actually gums up the works. Christy Sanzara's husband, Francis, he's a rock climber, and he's written a book, Zen on Climbing. And the basic theme of this book is that fear totally wrecks your climbing. If you want to be a good climber. So, synchronizing body and mind in this way involves developing fearlessness. Not in the sense of being willing to be a skydiver or surf a huge wave or subject yourself to danger for a thrill, not for that kind of fearlessness. Here, fearlessness means being able to respond accurately to the phenomenal world altogether. It means being accurate and absolutely direct in relating with the phenomenal world by means of your sense perceptions, your mind, and your sense of vision. Fearless vision. You see that you and your parts all belong there as you are. We have such self-doubt. And this really takes us away. And in this fearlessness, this synchronization of body and mind, we begin to realize that we belong here in this world, that we are good, that we are wholesome, each one of us, and deserve to be here. Totally. You begin to realize that you have the perfect right to be in this universe, he says. You don't have to apologize for being born on this earth. In samsaric mind, we have such self-doubt, such self-attack. It's really so sad. And really what this is about is coming into confidence and appreciation for being here. He says, you don't have to apologize for being born on this earth. This discovery is the first glimpse of what is called the Great Eastern Sun. So when we talk about the Great Eastern Sun, really, it's all about realizing that we are fine, we are wholesome, we are okay in every way, including our death, our illness, our frailties, all the things that that we're born into, or our karma, and our deaths coming up. All good, that we are worthy. He talks about, this is the discovery of the Great Eastern Sun. When we say sun here, we mean the sun of human dignity, the sun of human power, the sun of confidence, the sun of knowing that we're worthy to be here. The Great Eastern Sun is a rising sun rather than a setting sun. It represents the dawning or awakening of human dignity, the rising of human warriorship. And warriorship, remember, this is the best translation for warrior, for Powell, which really means brave one. So it's really the awakening of human dignity, the rising of human bravery, total bravery. Synchronizing body and mind brings the dawn of the Great Eastern Sun, he says. I think we could have a pause and have some questions or remarks before going on to the next chapter, chapter 6. If anybody would like to say anything or ask anything. Lojo.
Thank you. John, I was wondering, is there any difference between doubtlessness and Tamalgishepa?
No, they are one. Tamalgishepa means ordinary mind. And really what it's talking about, ordinary mind, that's what the literal translation is, this mind that we're talking about, this mind of clarity, of simplicity, of total momentary awareness. It's also in the Nyingma tradition, Tamalgishepa is a Kagyu term, Kagyu sect. The Nyingma sect, the other sect that we subscribe to, Trungpa Rinpoche's root guru was Nyingma, and those two sects were very close. They call it Rigpa, which is the Tibetan for Vidya, which means true seeing. What's the title of the book by Gorgon Chowang? Our Pristine Mind. That's another translation for Rigpa, is pristine mind. And they're all talking about this, glorifying it a bit. Don't let it cow you. Ordinary mind is a good one. Is a good translation.
I like it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
This is really, this point, this synchronization of body and mind, this coming present is the center of the Vajrayana. In fact, it's the very center of Buddhism. altogether. Everything in Buddhism revolves around this point. This is enlightened mind, which we can experience whether we're enlightened or not, because it is fundamental to our being. It's bodhicitta, awakened mind, which is, we're born with it. It's tamalgishepa, which is saying the same thing. Ordinary mind, tamalgishepa. And it's, all these terms refer to this. It's the linchpin, you might say, or the pivot around which all the Buddhist teachings revolve. And it's our practice. It is our main practice to come back to this simple, clear awareness right now. You can do it on the cushion, that's fine. It's good practice to do it on the cushion. It's like a lab experience. You know, you go into the lab and you have your test tubes and your Bunsen burner and whatever you're going to do. But then you go out into the world and you really do it. And that's even better, to remember to come back. And it's often so hard because we're so habituated to going off into dream. So it's even better practice if you can do it as you walk down the street, as you talk to your mother on the phone, or whatever. Let's go into the next chapter. Any other comments or questions?
Well, both Mark and Miriam.
Okay.
Marion
Yeah.
could.
Okay, I'm just trying to reconcile this experience of just utter presence with shunyata, and I'm getting confused with what are, like, acknowledging shunyata and yet having such a full panoramic awareness.
Shunyata is an earlier discovery on the path. And when you move beyond that, you come to this. This contains shunyata. Shunyata is a description of sort of the underpinnings of this synchronization of body and mind, of this rikpa, of this pristine awareness. Shunyata is talking about the errors that keep us from seeing this. And the errors are belief in I and other, which don't exist. They are fictions. They are mental creations. And they are necessary creations for our anxieties. Our anxieties are always about me and this other, and what's going to happen to us. Will we have love? Will we have hate? Will I make a lot of money? Will I be poor? You know, will I be healthy? Will I be... And shunyata is all about the fact that that fundamental structure of the I-other dilemma is false. It's a mental creation. It's a lie. And shunyata is about proving that, understanding that, beginning to see that. Once one begins to understand that and see that this I-other relationship that we've created and that inhabits all of our thoughts is false, that enables us to come present much more powerfully. So the first discovery of shunyata is the discovery of the absence of I and other, which is sometimes called the absence of suffering. But then there's something more beyond that. In the absence of I and other, in the absence of that back and forth in thought, with that gone, this world, the perception of this world, emerges much, much more vividly. And that takes us even deeper into reality, beyond shunyata. They still talk about shunyata because shunyata is the correction of the error. But beyond that is the magic and luminosity and beauty of this world as it's revealed in the absence of I and other, in the voidness of shunyata. So shunyata, which literally means voidness, that's what shunya means. Shunya means void. Ta is a nominative, so it's voidness. What's it void of? It's void of I and other and the journey between them. And in the absence of that, then this world emerges much more beautifully and vividly. That's the luminosity. So what Trungpa Rinpoche often said was that this voidness is also a fullness. When you get rid of this clutter of I and other, then the beauty, the fullness of the world becomes evident. It's revealed. And this is Tantra. This is the Vajrayana. This is what the Vajrayana is all about. It's that fullness. Seeing the world void of the error of samsara, which is the error of I and other. Seeing it shunya, and then that which allows us then to appreciate this extraordinary beauty and to fall in love with the world and to act in consonance with that. Thank you. That's a terrific question.
No, thank you. It's very helpful.
Who else was there? Mark?
Hi, John. I was just thinking that, for my practice, when I'm meditating, I really, I love these chapters talking about such simplicity, like the gold, the colors, like whether it's green or the heat of red and the coolness of blue and I can almost, I've read this before and I really felt like it affected. I don't know if I'm just too I get taken in, but sometimes I feel like I see it more powerfully after reviewing this type of stuff. I don't know if I'm really affected like that, or I'm just a little crazy. But but I also, you were talking about photography, and I actually returned a whole camera system because I was enjoying my meditation so much in its simple form. But when I started getting involved with ISOs and shutter speeds and depth of field and all this, I felt I was too much in thought and I wasn't enjoying. What do you think of that? Is that, I know it's not, I'm not in some, is it samsara to be thinking of, there's nothing wrong with taking a good photograph in the moment. Anyway, that's it.
I think of Trungpa Rinpoche and his camera. He just loved his camera.
Right.
And ISO and
right
speed and lens aperture and
it's all okay in the moment.
All of that. Well, all art involves techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're doing a brushstroke painting, or creating a sculpture, or a Zen garden, or writing a book, there is technique that has to be learned and employed. But then there's the seeing, the seeing of the beauty of this world that informs that technique. And the technique becomes a way of expressing that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So it's necessary for us to study technique and practice.
Right.
And at some point you get beyond the technique if you're a very skilled artist in your particular medium, right? Then it becomes like second nature, a way of expressing yourself, like speaking. We know
right.
how.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, let's go on into the second chapter, which is called Chapter 6, The Dawn of the Great Eastern Sun. And this is so important, this first line. He says, in spite of all the difficulties, you feel it is worthwhile to be a human being. It's worthwhile to be you. We have such difficulty with that. We're so self-critical. And it's so revolutionary, this idea that we could actually be worthwhile, just fundamentally, that we were born okay. Isn't that such a radical idea sometimes? And you realize that you can uplift yourself by understanding this, appreciating your existence as a human being, no matter your station in life, whether you're a garbage man or the president of the United States. But although I think a garbage man would have a better chance at it than the president of the United States, the personal opinion. He says, you begin to feel that it is a worthwhile situation to be a human being, to be alive, and not afraid of death. That's a big one. In the teachings, and we're all going to be facing this sooner or later, and some of us sooner, they say that the greatest enemy in going into death is fear. And we are encouraged to develop fearlessness. And how do we do that? That's what this is talking about. We develop fearlessness by shifting our allegiance from the anxious thoughts that inhabit our minds to this simple awareness of whatever it is, including death, in the present moment. I remember, the teachings on death, which we'll go through at some point, which are really gorgeous, describe the process of death. There are 3 bardos. Bardo means interval. Bardo literally means, the word in Tibetan means from to, bar do. So in any interval, there's the bardo of this class, whatever. There's the bardo of your night's sleep. It begins and ends from to. But there are 6 main bardos in life, and in death, in life and death. And in death, there are 3. The first one is called the painful bardo of dying. And why is it painful? Well, it's painful for ordinary human beings because you lose the world. You think it's painful to lose what? Your youth, your beauty, your wealth, your lover. Well, when you die, you lose everything, your body, the whole world. So it's painful unless you have achieved some degree of awareness, enlightenment, awakening. And so what they do is they describe the stages of the dissolution of the physical and mental being, dying, in other words. And there are stages that are described in the teachings. And the Dalai Lama, I read his book. He has a book on it. It's quite good, on the bardos of death. And he says that in that book, I don't know if he's still doing it, but at the time that he wrote it, every day he contemplated these teachings, contemplated the stages of dying, because he wanted to recognize them when they happened. He didn't want them to come as a surprise and to be frightened, which is great teaching. So it's a worthwhile situation to be a human being, to be alive, not afraid of death. And examining my own mind, and I know the minds of many people here who I've spoken with, often we feel that we just aren't worthy, that there's something wrong with us. And what these teachings are saying is so radical. It's saying there isn't anything wrong with us at all. In fact, we are at the core wholesome, to the core. We are basically good. That's the teaching, basic goodness. So you begin to feel that it's a worthwhile situation to be a human being, to be alive and not afraid of death. I remember Trungpa Rinpoche when he was about 31, I think I was 25, and him saying to me, "You better hurry up. I'm going to die at 37. That's what he told me. Well, he lived to be 47, and I didn't hurry up fast enough. But he did die young, and I never saw him express 1 ounce of fear from beginning to end. He says, of course, you cannot ever avoid death, but if you have lived your life with a sense of reality and with gratitude toward life, then you leave the dignity of your life behind you so that your relatives, your friends, and your children can appreciate who you were. They appreciate the fullness with which you lived life, if you can do this. The vision of the Great Eastern Sun is based on celebrating life. It's in contrast to the setting sun, which is afraid of death. That's the sun that is going down and dissolving into darkness. The setting sun vision is based on trying to ward off death, trying to save ourselves from dying. The setting sun point of view is based on fear. We are constantly afraid of ourselves and for ourselves. We are so ashamed of ourselves, who we are, what we are. This is the setting sun point of view, to be ashamed of ourselves. It's so built in. We're taught this from early on, to be ashamed of who we are, and it's such a sorrow and so wrong that we could, it's not a matter of being proud of who we are, like, gosh, I'm a great person and people ought to admire me and bow down to me. It's not that. It's just that we are worthy, we are worthwhile, we are lovable, people could appreciate our generosity, our communication, our art, our kindness. The Great Eastern Sun vision, on the other hand, is based on appreciating ourselves and appreciating our world. So it is a very gentle approach. Because we appreciate the world, we don't make a mess in it. We take care of our bodies, we take care of our minds, and we take care of the world. And it's fearless when it's done right, because there's no time for fear. The world around us is regarded as very sacred. In fact, it's seen as sacred. So we have to constantly serve our world and clean it up, express our appreciation for it, make it even more beautiful. The setting sun vision is that washing things and cleaning up should be done by the domain of hired help, he says. If you do it yourself, you regard it as dirty work. This is setting sun vision. He says thousands of tons of leftovers are discarded every year. How many times have we heard this? Restaurants, just dumping tons of food out. That's the setting sun approach. Their minds want a lot more than they can actually eat. So the setting sun approach is to shield ourselves from dirt as much as we can, and that dirt includes everything all the way to death itself. So we become cowards, trying to distract ourselves from death. And then we get the oppressive hierarchy in the setting sun world of the servants and the served. The served are the people who are avoiding death, and the servants are the people who get paid to clean up for them. Never experience things completely. Packaged food, vacations, deals of all kinds. The avoidance of the full reality of this life at any cost. In contrast, Great Eastern Sun vision is based on seeing what is needed and how things happen organically. It's just being here with open eyes and intelligence. It's based on seeing that there is a natural source of radiance and brilliance in this world. All we have to do is open our eyes to it, which is the innate wakefulness of human beings. So the analogy for the Great Eastern Sun vision is the sun. It's the source of vision, light, heat, warmth, life shines through every window in the house. Its brightness inspires you to open all the curtains. Or the flowering plant that grows upward toward the sun, it's great eastern sun. As for the setting sun, it's a lid that flattens you and keeps you in your place. It's mean. In great eastern sun world, even criminals can be cultivated, he says. In the setting sun vision, criminals are hopeless and are part of the dirt we dispose of. We put them away for years in prisons to rid ourselves of them. In the great eastern sun world, no human being is a lost cause. We're always willing to give things a chance to flower. So the basis of the great eastern sun vision is realizing that the world is clean and pure to begin with. There is no problem with cleaning things up. What we're giving up really is doubt. I, other, neurosis, samsara. So there's no problem with cleaning things up, returning them to their natural, original state. It's like getting one's teeth cleaned, he says, back to their original state. In working with ourselves, cleaning up begins by telling the truth, being honest with ourselves, even if it is unpleasant. We're often so running from what we fear in ourselves. And one of the first things we have to do is stop, come to a screeching halt. See it, perhaps even communicate it. Acknowledge it. So in this world, there are always the possibilities of original purity because the world is clean to begin with. Original purity is a big term in the Tantras. Dakpa. Everything is originally pure. It's just that it gets sullied by the thoughts of hope and fear. In the sadhana of Mahamudra, it says, talking about the enlightened state of mind, good and bad, happy and sad, all thoughts vanish into emptiness, like the imprint of a bird in the sky. That's what we mean by basic goodness. The pure ground that is always there, waiting to be cleaned by us as those thoughts evaporate. We can always return to that primordial ground. That is the logic of the great eastern sun, that we can always return to that primordial ground. So we could have a discussion. I see Chaim has his hand raised.
I just was wondering if Vajrayana will be reincarnated.
And that's what he said. In fact, during his lifetime, he used to say that he wasn't going to be reincarnated as a teacher. He wanted to be reincarnated. Now remember, this was in the age of the ascendancy of Mitsushita and Sony, and Japan was in its ascendancy in the 1980s, early 80s, in Japanese technology. And he said he wanted to be reborn as a Japanese scientist. You see, in the Vajrayana, there's such an emphasis on love of life, and that includes tremendous curiosity. The word prajna, which in the Mahayana, connected with shunyata, means seeing things beyond I and other. That's what prajna is about, seeing things as they are, without the distortion of the labels of I and other, and all that entails. But in the Vajrayana, prajna becomes immense curiosity, because the person has nothing to do except explore this beautiful world with great joy. And they call that exploration play.
So it sounds like he was interested in science, and especially maybe electronics or computer science. I bet you today he would be a supporter of Bitcoin.
He would have been, maybe. But the thing is that he was reborn, supposedly. You see, in the Tibetan system, lamas who survive will find the next reincarnation. And that reincarnation was found in Tibet. And Trungpa Rinpoche was the 11th in his line. The 12th is alive and teaching in Eastern Tibet as a teacher. He has been for quite some years.
Wait, so the 12th is the incarnation of who?
Of Trungpa Rinpoche.
So there's so who was Vidyadhara a reincarnation of?
The 10th.
Okay.
His name I forget. But the 10th was very, very different, than the 11th. And Rinpoche, we often asked him, why do you drink and smoke and womanize and all that? And the best answer I ever heard, he never gave a straight answer, The best answer I ever heard was, he said, well, the 10th Trungpa, his previous incarnation, was completely ascetic. He lived his life in a meditation box. This is a box that doesn't let you lie down, and it sort of has slanted sides so that you're not encased. And you sit on a cushion and you have a meditation belt, like you can see Milarepa sometimes is depicted wearing a meditation belt. It goes across the shoulder and down to your hips and around your waist. And so the 10th Trungpa lived his life, a lot of it, in a meditation box, was totally vegetarian, no sex, no alcohol. And Rinpoche said, maybe the pendulum swung so far to that side in my last life that it had to come all the way over to this side in my current life. That was the best answer I ever heard him give. So, thank you. Who else? Golly, no questions or comments.
I have a question.
Okay, Meg.
I'm really fascinated with the the metaphor of the great rising sun or the great eastern sun. And I just wondered if you have any insight into why that metaphor, like why is that symbolizing human dignity? And
Well, it's just another beautiful symbol, And the sun is always rising, the great eastern sun, never sets. And this is a symbolic of human dignity and beauty, the beauty of human nature, that it's always coming new every instant. There's a constant rising, constant opportunity for creativity and love and the expression of those things to one another, to create a really beautiful world in the light of the sun.
yeah, that makes sense actually. And so like, what about the setting sun? I'm thinking of the setting sun as sort of like the setting of our old way of thinking. Is that?
The setting sun was, symbolic of a concern, a fear of death, a fear that the sun's going to go down. Oh, the day is going to be over. I don't want it to end. And doing things that both literally and metaphorically to stay death, to fend it off, in one way or another. This is setting sun mentality. So I remember Val and I just got back from Aspen for 4 days, but I remember going up there in the 70s, and I was working in those days. I was working in the resort industry and being impressed in Aspen. I think it's changed a bit. It's gotten much bigger for one thing, but in those days, especially the emphasis on money, wealth, how much you had, and youth, a cult of youth. People were so obsessed with looking young. And I met lots of middle-aged people who didn't want to be middle-aged. I don't know, Sarah, do you think it's still that way?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It just attracts that. It's so beautiful, such a beautiful place, It's absolutely drop dead gorgeous, the environment. Before white people discovered it, or whatever you want to call us, the non-Indians. The Indians regarded it as a holy place, a place for that they went to for healing. It's just remarkably physically beautiful. But yeah, she says it still feels that way. I haven't spent enough time meeting people up there to know, but I'll take your word for it, Sarah. That is setting sun mentality. Facelifts, trying to look beautiful. There's no grace in that. There's no love of life and death, the whole process. There's no courage. It's fear-based. And it's a rejection of life, which includes death. We're dying every instant.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, these teachings are really, really gorgeous. To me, anyhow, and you. Mark, you had your hand up.
Oh, I was just going to mention a book that I think you recommended it at one time, or In Love with the World by Yogi Mingyur Rinpoche. It was quite wonderful if anybody would be interested, and it's on audio books also. It's just his transition is wonderful. He leaves the cloister, and goes out into the world, and he's had this protected life, this privileged life, and he's not out there too long before he's dying. He's eaten some bad food, and he talks about the bardos, and at the very last minute, it's like he's saved from somebody who recognizes him, gets him into the hospital, and he wrote a book about it. It's really quite astounding. Anyway.
Yeah, Mingyur Rinpoche is a wonderful teacher. He is the brother of Tsoknyi Rinpoche, whom some of you may know, who teaches a lot in Crestone. I think he's got a teaching coming up and online. It's like both of them do. And also of a teacher that I haven't met named Chiki Nima Rinpoche. And actually those are three of the four brothers who were all sons of a really great teacher one of whose books I happen to have right here, Tulku Ujin Rinpoche. This is rainbow painting. And a lot of my Dharma brothers and sisters, after Tulku Rinpoche died, went to India and studied with Tulku Ujin. He was a great Dzogchen teacher, and he's passed now. And he had these four sons, all by different wives, all women. And so they're half brothers, each one of them. And Mingyur and Tsoknyi I've known. We used to have them come and teach at Westchester Buddhist Center and put them up in our homes. And they're wonderful people and wonderful teachers. Wow,
that's some neat people. That's just incredible.
There's some really great people around. What Mark is referring to about Mingyur was he went on a walkabout. He was a well-known teacher. He had taught at the Westchester Buddhist Center, young. He was the youngest of the four brothers. And one day he decided to leave and go walk about India, unaccompanied, with no food, no money, nothing, and to beg. And I think that book, I haven't read it, is the story of his walkabout. He got sick during that and almost died.
But there's a documentary about it as well. It's called Wandering But Not Lost. It's really fantastic.
No, terrific. And by the way, the Shambhala myth, how much time do we have? 6:36. Let me give you something here. I want you to get a taste of this. On YouTube, there is a video you might watch. Ian Baker, same last name as me, no relationship. It's called Shambhala, the Heart of the World. He also wrote a book about it. I read his book years ago, and I didn't like it that much, but I've heard that he has rewritten it a lot, and it's gotten better. The video on YouTube, Shambhala, the Heart of the World, is really worth seeing. It's terrific. But I just want to read you a little bit about Shambhala. Just hold on a second. I'm going to pull up some notes here. The Shambhala is not Trungpa Rinpoche's creation by any means. And this is a demonstration of that. If I can find this, maybe I should save it. If I can't find it immediately, I'll save it for another week. Here we go, I think. Oops, sorry. No. I think I'm going to have to search for it. Basically, it's a doctrine. There are a bunch of teachers going back to the 1980s who came Tibetans, some of whom you know, like, well, not Mingyur wasn't one of them, but others. I've been studying with a Lama named Khenpo Namdrol, and I started studying with him in 2003. In 1985, he came and spoke to our Sangha about Shambhala. And Khenpo Katar, some of you might know, he's very close with the Karmapa in Woodstock at Karma Triana Dharma Chakra. And he's speaking about it. And Trungpa Rinpoche, who was he was a Dharma brother of Trungpa Rinpoche, he's speaking about Shambhala. And it's about the kings. And it's about the evolution of Shambhala and how it became, it was a real kingdom that became so enlightened that it basically ascended into another sphere. And it's about the kings of Shambhala. We are in the reign of I forget, it's the 21st or the 22nd Rigden king. And in the reign of the 24th, on earth, there will be a terrible, we're in a period of descent right now. The world is getting worse, and it's going to continue to get worse until the year 2427 or so, when there will be this cataclysmic war. This is the presentation that they give. And all of us students of Shambhala are going to be soldiers in the army of Shambhala. And the army is going under the reign of that king. I think it's the 24th Rigden king. They're sometimes called the Kulika kings, will defeat the forces of evil and establish a reign of Dharma in the world that will last 1,000 years. But before that happens, things are going to get a lot worse. So I think the one reason to know about this is for us to know that as things get so terrible in the world today, with Russia, with, Roe versus Wade, whatever, with all of this stuff that's happening, that this is part of the descent that we're in. And that our job is to absorb these teachings and to bring basic goodness and Great Eastern Sun as much as we can into the world as we go through these terrible circumstances. So we'll all practice together. I want to ask it again. I have a resistance to this and I want to overcome it, which is a 1-week retreat. And I've gotten feedback from people that probably the beginning of October. The first week or two of October is the best time. And looking at price and location, and so many of you are located on the East Coast, Northeast Coast, I am thinking about doing it at Carmi Churling, which has less expensive and has beautiful facility. It's cheaper than some of the other facilities available. And if you could send me your preferences, that if you are interested in this, email your dates. And I'm thinking at this point, based on the little bit of feedback I've gotten, that either the first or the second week in October, it'll be beautiful there because the leaves will be changing. It's leaf season, which can be really spectacular. So it could be a great celebration of the great Eastern Sun. So please, if you would, if you're interested, email me your preferences for dates. And if you have other dates that you would rather do, let me know that too. Chaim wants to know, what was the video he mentioned about Shambhala? That's this video on YouTube. Ian Baker, if you go to YouTube and type in Ian Baker, The Heart of the World, you'll get it. It's gorgeous. And it'll familiarize you a bit with the myth, so-called myth. Maybe it's not a myth. Maybe Shambhala is up there waiting for us. It was.
You know, I have an interest in UFOs, and Shambhala is sometimes associated with Agartha, or the land underneath the earth. So literally the heart of the world underneath the ground.
Well, they say that, see what Ian Baker is talking about in his video is that you can go to Shambhala now, literally, as a place. And it's very hard to get to because the journey there is both spiritual and physical, geographic. And he's talking about what's called the Bayul. Bayul is another name for this. It means the sacred land. And there are 4 entrances to the Bayul. And they're very hard to find. It's, as I say, a spiritual and a physical journey. And Ian set out, he's a member of the American Explorers Club, but he set out to find an entrance. And he didn't get into Shambhala. He actually saw an entrance. And there is a picture of the entrance in his book. At the bottom of the deepest river gorge in the world, the Tsangpo River Gorge in Tibet, which turns into the Yangtze River and is one of the 2 longest rivers in the world, I think, 2 or 3. And the Tsangpo River Gorge down a couple of thousand, 2,000, 3,000 feet in this gorge. He got there and he could see this hole in the wall across the raging torrent. He describes this in his book, and there are photographs of it. And guess what it looks like? A vagina. A very, very large vagina in the rock. And supposedly this is one of the entrances to the Bayul. But you can read his book, and he has photographs in that book of places in Tibet that I've never seen pictures of before, and people. And it's quite a beautiful video. Well, perhaps we should draw this to a close. Are there any other? Oh, there, Fred, you've got a.
Hi. Wow, I love these Shambhala teachings. They're just so inspiring. They just inspire bravery. And, like what I'm kind of getting out of these past few chapters, there's a progression of fear, fearlessness, looking and not looking. And, like the fruition of that, I guess, exercise would be like examining our own nature, which is basically good. And that's Buddha nature. And that's where we're afraid to look. It's like, why won't we look at that? And what keeps coming to my mind, and I'd love to hear what you think about this, is like, we don't believe we could receive that type of love.
Yeah.
Why are we so stupid? You know, it's like, what is this?
This is samsara. This is why we're all here. This is what we have to work on. It's the belief that we're fundamentally flawed. You know, that is the very basis of samsara, of confusion and suffering, that we don't realize that we're all Buddha and acting out of that with appreciation, with creativity, with love, with beauty. And the
Seems to be a giant. It seems to be a giant mix-up.
That's what samsara is. That's what they say.
But what is the transparency of the ego? Doesn't it mean that we are fundamentally split? We are not whole.
No, the ego is a lie. It's a mistake. It's an error. It's a fiction.
So where do you locate this wholeness? It's a very dangerous.
It's what is already here. We just cover it over by believing the lie. That's what the definition of unenlightenment is. That we believe it's a lie, this lie. Well, on that note, friends, we could say the closing chants, dedicate the merit generated by our practice, the merit for ourselves. And if we can, as we move into this, each one of us, we become much more of value to others. Each one of us. The people that we contact in our lives. We each have that opportunity. So, Meg, are you doing the chants?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll put them up. I'm going to mute all.
We'll close with a prayer for,
Oh, sorry, Meg, I muted you.
okay, no problem. We'll close with a prayer for peace and then dedicate the merit earned by our practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. By the blessings of enlightened and compassionate ones, by the power of my positive actions of 3 times and my prayers of pure aspiration, may wars, conflicts, epidemics, and all other maladies dissolve in this world, and may the earth and all who live on this earth enjoy the abundance of well-being. May all learn to live lovingly with each other. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
I want to say one more thing, just a piece of information. For those of you who have chanted the Sadhana Mahamudra, and if you've received some teachings on it from me or someone else, I have found out that it's much easier. You can buy it. So if you want to, talk to me and I'll give you permission, and then you can just tell them, I'll tell you where to buy it and you can go there and buy it. That's one thing. Another thing is that there are some people now who are beginning Nundro. Nundro are the preliminary practices, so-called. They're actually full-blown Vajrayana practices, but they're called the special preliminary practices. And the basic requirement is that you have taken the refuge and bodhisattva vow some time ago. You have to wait a bit after those two vows, and that we have a conversation about it. So anyone who is interested in beginning their Nundo practice, there are a few people in the community here who are doing that. Get in touch with me and we can discuss it. So have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you, John. Thank you, Meg.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Everyone.
Thanks,
Howard
everyone.
stayed on.
Be well.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Michael. Thank
Bye
you,
now.
Meg.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.